Good evening, New Bedford. This is our last debate of the night. We're doing the Ward 5 City Council debate. In studio, I have Paul Chasse. Scott Lima declined to come tonight. He said he's out knocking on doors. So we have one of the candidates here, Paul Chasse. So what we're going to do tonight is take your questions. If you haven't, throw them in the comment section. I have some prepared questions, but we're going to give Paul a chance to give an introduction.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm happy to be here. So I'll make my introduction somewhat brief because I know we've done this before in the candidate forum, but I appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Paul Chasse. I'm married. I'm a father of two, 43-year resident of the city of New Bedford. My current occupation, I'm the CEO of the Realtor Association of Southeastern Massachusetts. I also hold committee memberships on the Mass Association of Realtors Government Affairs Committee, and I'm also a committee member of the National Association of Realtors Federal Finance and Housing Policy Issues Committee. Locally, I'm the chairman of the Realtor Boston Coalition, and for those of you who are not aware, the coalition's been around for about 4 years now. We've partnered with Chambers of Commerce, the Realtor Association, and other private and public entities in reestablishing Real back from Boston to New Bedford, Fall River, and the surrounding communities. So I'm also involved in that. I am a member of the South Coast Chamber of Commerce. I was going to say Great New Bedford, but now South Coast Chamber of Commerce's Government Affairs Committee, and I am also a member of the South Coast Development Partnership. And the reason why I bring that up is because I have over 20 years of advocacy experience behind me, and I would like to use that in representing Ward 5. Okay,
so first question. Obviously, the big real estate in Ward 5 is Buttonwood Park.
Yes.
So some of the concerns, we had a question earlier I decided to grab, is sometimes there's needles out in the park.
Yes.
Is there a way to reduce that so kids don't get stuck with it?
Sure. So, I mean, part of that is just being more aware of what's happening in the park. I mean, obviously, the biggest way to tackle that is to tackle opiate abuse altogether, and that is a conversation we could certainly have as we go forward if you'd like to. But specifically about the needles in the park, I think it's just a greater awareness. I think people have to be aware when they're in the park. It used to be people would see something but wouldn't say something, and it's important for people to actually reach out now and say something, no matter what it is, whether it's a needle or even an object that they're not sure of, to reach out to the city, reach out to your Ward 5 city councilor, because that's what we're here for, is to represent the ward. So I think there are some ways to do it. One of them is to be more aware, visually aware of what's going on in your surroundings, and to have an active Ward 5 city councilor who is also trying to stay on top of those type of things.
Okay, I'll take some questions from the audience. So Lynn Kenny says that rents are too high. I'm not sure the city council is going to do a lot about that, but you have any ideas to maybe landlords or just bring rents down at all? Is there a way?
Sure. So it's hard to go back in time. Rents are, they're not cheap in New Bedford, but certainly they are not as expensive as they are the more north you get to Boston. So we can be appreciative of that. I think, when it comes to rents, when it comes to quality of life period in New Bedford, I think one of our biggest issues is economic development. It's jobs. It's bringing higher paid jobs, higher wage earning jobs to the city for more people to be able to attain a higher wage and earn more in a living, so that way they can help to spur the economy and to help with rents. And it's not only rent, but it's also property taxes and other expensive things. So while I can appreciate the rent issues, I don't think going backwards is something. I would love to say we could do that, but it's not something that's probably feasible. What we need to focus on is how we can make more money in the city of New Bedford and around the city of New Bedford for our residents to be able to afford the quality of life they need.
So let's get specific. Todd Funzica asked, what would you do to help economic development in the city? But do you have any specific ideas, like exactly how you would?
So, as far as economic development, and I've said this before, I first of all, I praise what the Economic Development Council is doing right now. I think they do. They have a tough job, right? They're competing with all the other economic development councils around the state. I think they do, Derek and his team does a terrific job of trying to lure people into the city. I think one of the biggest problems that we have, though, is permitting. We have issues around our permitting, and I think we need to streamline that a bit. The building department, some of those departments within City Hall, I think we need to take a look at. If we need some more support, some more staff within those departments, then certainly we need to take a look at that. If we need to upgrade technology. One thing I'll say is being the CEO of the Realtor Association, I talk with a lot of folks in and outside the area, investors, commercial folks, small businesses. And the one thing I hear most often is that it's very hard to get up and running in the city of New Bedford. It's not a business-friendly city. So I think we talk economic development. Yes, we could talk about projects all day, bringing people in down to the waterfront. There's certainly plenty of access on the waterfront. We've got a booming, obviously we know, and again, we just found out again, that we got a booming waterfront itself, in and of itself, in the fishing industry. But small businesses, corporate offices, science and technology, areas like that, we need to lure them into the city, and we need to do that through permitting, better permitting processes, streamlining permitting, and really help them to grow within the city of New Bedford. That's how we're going to attract businesses to New Bedford, and that's how we're going to get them to grow.
So let's continue on Buttonwood Park. The pond used to kind of have a lot of activity, years ago, and now it's kind of, I don't say toxic, but it's could use some improvement in there. Any ideas to improve the pond?
Well, I do know that from the New Bedford, the neighborhood association meetings that I've been attending this year, that they were proposing to have the swan boats back, and it was almost there, and then it just didn't happen in time. The proposal came up, I believe, in the late spring, early summer. So by the time things got rolling again with the city of New Bedford, I don't think they had enough time to do it, so they kind of bowed out of it. But they are looking to come back in next year. We have talked about it a bit. So I think that in and of itself is going to help spur that area around the pond. There is some talk about, dredging or doing something to improve the pond, and that's an area that we have to look at as well. And that's why Ward 5 City Councilor is so important, because we don't receive in Ward 5, just like Ward 1, we don't receive community development block grants because of the income ratio. So we have to rely on other funding sources through the city of New Bedford, whether it be Community Preservation Act money or something like that. So we have to look at those things, and a Ward 5 councilor really needs to understand that. And I think, by the way, Kerry Winterson has done a fantastic job at that. I've talked to Kerry quite often over the past summer to understand better what it is the Ward 5 City Councilor needs to do to bring some of that money to the Ward, and that's something that I'm going to look at.
Crime, is it down in the city of New Bedford?
Not right now, it's not, right? So I think that at one time it was. We have had a spike. It seems to be in the news every day. We see the paper, we see a New Bedford Guide. Again, the police department, they're doing a fantastic job. They're constantly out there, and it's one bust after another after another. Is crime down right now? I think crime is it needs to come down more. We need safer streets, and there are ways to do that. One of the ways is to enhance community policing. I think we need to get more community policing out there. What I will say that my opponent hasn't said, and others haven't said, which I'm surprised about, but what I will say is, being in the budget hearings this past May and June, it was clear that the New Bedford Police Department didn't spend their entire budget this year. So they had about $400,000 surplus, I believe. And when it comes to public safety, I don't think we should have any surpluses. I'm the first person to say, hey, it's great to save some money, but in the public safety arena, we don't want to be saving money.
What would you spend that money on? $400,000.
$400,000. We need more police, and we need better technology. I think some of the technology that the police are using is a bit outdated. We need to upgrade that technology, and we need more officers on the streets under that community policing program, like I had said.
So I hear community policing thrown around a lot. How do you define that?
So I define that as being out there, walking the beat on bikes in areas that are higher crime areas than what I'll say is, and I heard Brian Gomes say this a couple times, and I completely agree with this, and that is, in the high crime areas, you can't have community policing where you've got a police officer on the street. I don't think that's safe. I think you need to have stepped up patrols where you have two in a car, and I know some of that's going on, but certainly we can do more. And again, going back to that $400,000, we could do more. And I think, so when it comes to community policing, it's about being, cops on the street, walking the sidewalks, on the bikes, and in the high crime areas, having two to a car and having more cars accessible.
So if you're elected, you'll be a new counselor. Do you have a first motion in mind?
So I don't know about a first motion, but one of the areas, like I said before, that I do want to focus on as a city is economic development and really understanding the process by which we have our permits and permitting process and how we can better streamline that. So I know it'll take some time on a citywide level to do that. On a local level, as far as Ward 5, I think like I said, I think it's important to bring as much of the Community Preservation Act money into the ward as possible to beautify and improve the quality of life for the residents of Ward 5. They, like a lot of other areas of the city, pay a lot of taxes, and they deserve lights that work. They deserve streets that are fully paved, not half paved, and they deserve to get some of those trees that have all been ripped up over the last few years replanted.
Okay, so to get into the ward, you have to get off, 140, and there's some nice panhandlers waiting for you.
There are.
Do we have a solution to that? That's considered one, and I read an article on this last year. That's one of the most dangerous intersections in the entire state.
140 and Route 6.
Route 6, right?
Right.
So, and that's also a magnet for some of the panhandlers. Right as you're heading to the park,
Right.
they're right there, right by the zoo. Do we have a solution for that?
Well, so the traffic situation that you're mentioning, I do think has helped. I think the construction that has happened on Route 6 and Kempton Street over the last couple of years has really helped to alleviate some of that situation. So I'm very pleased to see that they've finished that project, and that's headed in the right direction. As far as panhandling goes, we know that there's a constitutionality issue with panhandling, that they have the right to be there. It's been challenged in court many times. That doesn't mean that we don't stop as a city council to try to address the best way to eradicate the panhandlers on the corners. I believe that, at least for now, it could very well be the final solution, because I don't know how much teeth we have to go in other directions, but I really believe we need more education to the residents of New Bedford, that to help them understand that handing a panhandler money is not really helping the panhandler, that taking that money and either saving it and once a month donating it to one of the worthy charities, local charities in the city of New Bedford, will help so much more than handing it to a panhandler. And if we consistently do that, I think the panhandling situation goes away on its own, because if the panhandlers are out there and they're not being given money all the time, they will disappear at some point. And maybe some of those panhandlers will be more dependent on going to the services that either the city or some of these nonprofits have set up to help them. I really think education within the city we need to be stronger on that. More public service announcements, and really get the residents on board, understanding that they're not helping, that they're hurting, and actually certainly take that money and donate it to a local worthwhile nonprofit.
So there's 11 current city councilors right now. We'll have some switch out. Is there any city councilors that you look up to, that you would like to say you'd mimic over the next 2 years if you're elected?
That's a good question. I think that city councilors sometimes get a bad rap. What I will say is, since I've been sitting in the city council meetings, they are all there trying their best. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything they do works. It doesn't mean that everything they do always leads in the right direction, and there's certainly some back and forth with people not agreeing with each other. As far as any one particular one I would look up to, the only one I can say for sure that I know well enough, so I work with Ian over at the Chamber, on the Chamber Government Affairs Committee, and what I will say is that Ian is definitely a strong supporter of the city. I don't want to point out anybody in particular saying that, only because it's not that, I hold Ian in a higher regard than anybody else. I just happen to work with him. The only other person that I've really dealt with is Kerry, and what I will say is that I admire Kerry's spirit for the city and what he has tried to do to accomplish things for Ward 5. He's got a lot of energy, and no matter who comes in behind him, needs to have a lot of energy to really come behind him and do what needs to be done. But I admire his spirit and for what he believes in for the city and how he fights for Ward 5. So what I will say is I have learned a lot about Kerry over the last few months, and I would say I would love to continue Kerry's work in the ward.
Okay, so we'll do one final question, and then we'll let you do your closing statements.
Okay.
So what would your top two priorities be? Is number one considered economic development?
Number one is economic development.
What would two be? 'Cause we talked that already.
Yeah, two would be crime and opioid abuse, right? Because it's kind of, to me, they're kind of succinct. The opioid abuse and the crisis that has not taken over the city, but nationally speaking, the problems that we have really feed into a lot of the crime that we have in the city. And so those are two areas. I feel confident in the economic development ideas that I have, in streamlining permitting, bringing more businesses in here and getting more businesses to grow through small TIFs. I don't believe in complete TIFs, but small TIFs in permitting process will help to grow the economy in New Bedford. And as far as crime goes, community policing, I do think as far as the drug epidemic goes, I know we're getting a little off task, but I know you asked me my top two. So within crime is the opioid abuse. And there are two areas that we have to look at when it comes to opioid abuse. We have to look at the present, and we have to look at the future. Because if we don't address future opioid abuse, we're constantly going to be chasing after opioid abuse. So while the present opioid abuse needs to be addressed, and that is through stronger community policing, through working through city resources with the opioid task force and giving them more resources, I think we have to address the future opioid abuse, and that is education within our school system. I believe wholeheartedly that we need to begin education in drugs in the elementary school level. And the people I've talked to within the ward feel the same way, that by the time you get to middle school and high school in this day and age, they're already exposed in one way or another, and elementary school is really where we need to drive home education. Obviously, we need to continue it in middle school and high school, but elementary school, we used to have the DARE program. We need to bring back similarities to that, and we really need to drive home the drug education in the elementary school and really emphasize the importance of staying away. So those are my two biggest issues, economic development and crime.
I'll throw this out there. We have someone asking a question. She's persistent on this. So, do you have a candidate for mayor that you would back, or you stay out of that kind of?
Yeah, I stay out of that. Yep, just because it's I have my feelings about both candidates, and I think that it's important for everybody to make up their own mind on the candidate they choose for mayor.
Okay, so we'll let you do your closing statement.
Sure. I would just like to thank you again for the opportunity to do this today. I just really wanted to make sure and just emphasize that we've been campaigning for 6 months now, knocking on doors, talking with people. We've talked to a lot of great residents. We've had a lot of great stories. We've also talked to a lot of small business owners. And I hear what needs to be done, and I'm willing to step up and do the work, not only on behalf of the city, but more importantly on behalf of the ward. Ward 5 is my number one priority as a city councilor, and that's what I want to work on. I want folks to be able to come to me as a city councilor, and I would like to address whatever issues they have. I'm ready to do that, and I would humbly ask for the Ward 5 residents' vote on November 7th.
Okay, so New Bedford, I need your help. I have a coffee bet that we're going to get above 18% turnout on Tuesday. I think it's going to be closer to 23%.
I think it'll hit 20%.
Let's get it to 25. Let's get 30. Let's be bold here, right?
Absolutely.
So you can go out and absentee vote on Saturday.
Yes.
So go on the website, gives you all the details, or just really in Google, just type New Bedford elections. Go to the city's website, gives you all the details. 7 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. You can vote at you can go to the state's office, you go to the city's website, or excuse me, the state's website, Secretary of State.
Give me a
and
call.
You can find your polling station, call your local reps or even the candidates that are running.
Yep.
Find out where to vote and go, get it done. come on New Bedford Guide, post your number, show your little sticker, your little accountant number that they give you, and you can usually you write it down, but they can't. I think, do they give those anymore? I don't remember. I don't think they give those anymore. Right?
Yeah, no, at the primary they did.
But at least you can ask the person your number and let us know your number. Let's get so people say, oh, I gotta get over there and let's get this number up there. So don't go on Facebook and complain. Go vote.
Right.
If you vote, then come on and complain if you want. But
That's
don't
right.
complain and not vote, right? So, all right, guys. Thanks, Paul Chasse,
Thank you.
for coming out and giving us your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.